You're listening to the Bitching and Bolusing Podcast with Courtney and Brittany. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Bitching and Bolusing Podcast. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Courtney. Today we are going to touch on a bit of a controversial topic. Well, I think honestly, at this point, a lot of our topics are quite controversial.
Every single one.
Brittany and I were talking about this. How are we going to describe this episode? Let's touch on it a little. Is it acts of pity, acts of sympathy? It's these acts that people will take to, hey, I see you're struggling with a disabled child. Let me pay for your dinner. Or, hey, you know what? We're not going to charge you for your child to get in today. And these sort of acts that, although are rooted in kindness, are very jarring a lot of times and will really throw families off and disable people off. And we wanted to touch on these topics. We want to talk about how it makes us feel as parents and what we see, how it affects our children. I'm going to dive right in and talk about a very recent experience I had, which I also posted on my Instagram account, so some of you may be aware of. But recently, Brittany inspired me to go to a dino event.
Yay!
So Brittany had taken her kiddos and family over to a sort of a dino exploration event that she had nearby, and we had one that was very similar near us. So I said, hey, you know what, let's do this. So I went online and I looked at the age restrictions for tickets, and Lino fell under the age that he required a ticket, and Luca did not. Luca still being under 2 years old. So I bought us 3 tickets for the 4 of us to go. Mm-hmm. We were super excited. It had the dinosaurs animatronics, but then it also had like a light show at night. It was so cool. It really
Were they life-sized, right? It was like life-sized
They were.
dinos. Amazing.
Yeah, they're like massive. Yeah, it was just like this really cool thing. And when it got dark out, it was all lit up. So it was very like CVI oriented. It was just like this really cool thing. So I was super excited. And we packed up the kids, and when we arrived at the entrance, it was interesting because there was a bunch of people, and I guess they were purchasing tickets on site. So they were all like kind of bunched up at the front. And instantly, one of the ladies that was at the entrance saw us from the back and called me over. In hindsight, I actually now realize I think she called us over specifically because Lino was disabled. But at first, I didn't really catch on to that. I thought, maybe she thinks I already have tickets, which I did. I walked over and she's like, okay, do you have tickets already? And I was like, yeah. So I pulled them up and it was on the phone, and she scanned them and we just walked through. Very simple transaction. Scan the phone, walk through. When we walked through, I was barely past her and she's like, oh, you bought a ticket for him? And initially I didn't know who she was talking about, because I just was like thrown off. I was just like, I don't understand. You just scanned my tickets. What are you talking about? So it's like, huh? And she was like, oh, you bought 3 tickets? And I was like, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I like counted us out, but I was, I didn't know what was happening. So I was just like, yeah, the little one, he's under 2, and she's like, oh, well, I only scanned 2 tickets. I don't even remember. Actually, I did say one thing, and I'll get to that, but I really couldn't get words out because I wasn't really understanding what was happening. Like, it was just very confusing. Like, I was just like, I don't get it. I have 3 tickets.
Yeah,
and
it catches you so off guard.
It really does. And I was very confused. Like, I just wasn't understanding what she was saying. Was she saying I didn't have enough tickets? I don't know what happened. Like, did you need my phone for the 3rd?
The math isn't mathing. What's going on?
Yes, that's really what was happening in my brain. I'm just like, I don't understand what you're saying to me. Because I was like ready to give her my phone for the 3rd ticket when she said I only scanned 2 tickets. And she's like, no, listen, just get a refund for the 3rd ticket. I can't charge you. I can't charge you. And it was like a repetitive sentence she kept saying. She's like, I can't charge you for that. And as she said for that, she was looking and pointing at Lino's stroller.
Oh my God.
And I did actually just say thank you. And I think it's just because I didn't know what other words to say.
Yeah.
And Stefano didn't say anything. He was just like completely flabbergasted. And I walked maybe about, let's say about 6 to 10 feet away. Like we walked fully in, and I was just processing as I'm just walking into this place. And I just stopped and I was like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Like, and Stephanie was like, oh, well, she did charge us for Lino. And I'm like, not even that.
You're like, yeah, but there was this whole thing that happened with it.
There's a whole lot more going on here. My brain is literally in like overload right now. And he's like, what do you mean? So we talked it out for a second because Stefano didn't even hear her say, I can't charge you for that. That's what's really sitting in my head, number one. And then secondary to that is the fact that why the hell are you not accepting the ticket I purchased for my son that is of age for a ticket?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you're able to afford it because you did. Like, you got the kids together, so it's not like you can't complete the task of bringing them to this event. So it's like...
Yeah, and you have these age requirements. Like, you know, it was, if I recall correctly, I think it was any child under 3, perhaps, or maybe under 2 was free. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he's 4.5. I didn't think twice about it. It wasn't breaking the bank. If it was breaking the bank, we weren't going. Yeah. Let's be honest. It wasn't a financial decision that I was like, oh my God, I have to pay for my children that I birthed and I knew I would have to pay for at some point. Like, it wasn't that sort of situation. Really, I guess more than anything, the how she described him was just so jarring.
No, that was gross. Yeah, that's gross.
It was so jarring. I still grapple with it. Like, I can't figure out how to remedy what she said. And I don't know how to remedy me not saying anything. Because then I walked this event. So we get in and now we're here. And I didn't want everything to be ruined, right? Like, I didn't want this to sit on me and now the kids are going to be like affected by this event. Yeah. I wanted them to still enjoy the dinosaurs and all the different activities they had. So we kind of just had this quick conversation. It was just a couple of minutes of me and Stefano just working it out together. What the heck just happened? That was very inappropriate. This is how we feel. And then we were like, okay, I did have obviously an option of moving on and just enjoying the event or going to approach this woman. But I couldn't. I knew if I approached her, I was going to be
heated.
It was going to be bad.
Yeah.
It was going to be bad. And at that point, I didn't want to do that in front of my kids, number one. I didn't want to ruin this already when she has no right to ruin it for us at all. It is not her fucking right. And, you know, we paid to be there and I want these kids to enjoy it. So we just bottled it up, tucked it down, and we went along into the event. And we actually had a really honestly fun time. The dinosaurs scared the shit out of Luca.
No!
Yeah, but it was kind of funny. He'd be scared and then he'd run back. And, you know, it was just really funny experience of watching him. Oh, cool dinosaur. And the thing was like roaring at him and he's like, ah, and he'd run away. But then he'd run back. Oh, he scared me. Ooh, you know, and it was like this whole charade.
Alden had no fear whatsoever. And I remember Kyle and I were like, is this like, should we be concerned? Like, I feel like he should be a little afraid. And he's just like looking at them and he's just going, rah, rah, to all of them. And
Amazing.
I was like, is this child not afraid of anything? Like, what's going on? Like, no fear. No, Cyrus thought they were all hilarious, but like, he's into the dinos and he reads about them.
That was kind of Lino. Yeah. Lino thought they were funny. Like, even the velociraptor was like growling in his face and he was like, yeah. He was like, you're kind of cool, dude.
Alden's like, can I give it a hug? I'm like, dude. I think like.
It really is so much fun. You know, you get to see your kids interact in this way. And it was just such a fun thing. And like, we had Lino digging up fossils. Like, we took him out of his chair and I was holding him and they had like this faux fossil dig up thing.
Yeah, ours too.
Yeah. So it was just like really cool, you know, so we have this great time and, you know, we get in the car to go home because it was actually quite a distance from us. So we had some time in the car on the ride home. And that's when, you know, I really started to unpack all of this. It brings up a very common occurrence in society.
Yeah.
And it's this belief that because a child is disabled and I'm sure that honestly it's probably not even isolated to children. I'm sure it also happens with adults, but more commonly with children because they're children and people will see a disabled child and they believe that they're doing some sort of act of kindness by not charging them or by just letting them in for free, whatever the case may be. And it's incredibly problematic. on so many levels. It's problematic for the entire disabled community. Why does my child not deserve to just have a ticket to go to an event that is a paid ticket event? He's of age. Yes, he may not have engaged with the event like non-disabled children, because let's be honest, not all of these things are incredibly accessible. Yes, he might not engage with every activity just because it's not accessible or it's not safe for us to do that with him, but he has the right to go and enjoy himself and be a paid ticket holder just like everybody else. Yeah. And to blatantly put the spotlight on him like that is completely unfair and disrespectful. I pushed us through and we just moved on, but really it put the spotlight on him. Like there was people around. She's pointing at him. She's like, I can't charge you for him for that. Let's remember what she actually called him. What?
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? And this is a 4.5-year-old.
Yeah.
He does not deserve to be addressed like that. He doesn't deserve to have to be looked at any more than people are already looking at him, right? Yeah. People are already looking at him. Unfortunately, that's just the way the world is. So people are already looking at him, and now it's like this spectacle, and it's a spectacle of fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Pardon my goddamn language, but it's a spectacle of bullshit. Yeah. I'm out with my family. I'm trying to just do something fun with them, and now I have this pile of shit dumped on me because somebody thinks they're being nice.
There's so much to unload with that, right? Because there's the aspect of Lino and your family. And in terms of like, Lino has to see that. Lino has to be the one who's like receiving being called that. Like that's not okay. And so there's that where you don't want him to experience that because nobody should have to experience that. But then there's also the side of us internalizing this, because I have a different but similar story, and I think we've all kind of dealt with something like this, but as mothers, it's almost like you kind of freeze in these acts of kindness, right? Like, I am very good at being confrontational when it comes to being confrontational, right? Like, there was a whole situation at school where there wasn't handicap parking for us, and you know, somebody who worked there made us, like, park in the grass towards oncoming traffic and this and that, and I, like, brought my kid to school, and I, like, marched my ass down to her, and I fucking reamed her out, and I was like, you put us in a dangerous situation, like, where did you think that this was okay? This is unacceptable. Like, the school knew that they were having a kid with a wheelchair coming, like, and I had no problem being confrontational, right? When it comes to the acts of kindness, I freeze. And I'm just like, ha, 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 ha. And then, right? And then I go home later and I'm like, what the fuck did I should have said something. And it's so hard in that moment to, as mothers, to like figure out this balance of saying something, but you also don't want your kid to see you just rolling over. And being like, that's okay. It's so hard. It's so hard.
Oh, God, it's tormenting. It is tormenting. When I tell you that this sat on my brain for days, and not necessarily sat on my brain just about the whole acts of kindness thing and how that fits in society and it's just messed up, but that guilt.
Yeah. That
I didn't just respond, or that I didn't have a comeback, or that I didn't put her in her place, because I do worry. Does that show Lino to just be compliant? Like, no, I'm not trying to do that either, but I want people to understand that it is really, really jarring. Like, it really knocks you out of your element and you're completely thrown off, because here you are just doing your thing.
Yeah.
Like, you're just living life and somebody's just like, poof.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, as mothers, and especially as mothers to, you know, children that have disabilities, we want our kids to see us as, like, the dragon slayer, right? Like, we want our kids to, like, see us as, like, coming in with, like, our sword, and, like, we're gonna, like, slay the dragons that, you know, are evilest towards our kids, and sometimes all they get is, like, this meek little lamb where we're just like, okay.
We just freeze.
And we freeze. And it's like, We've dealt with something similar, and it's so funny, Courtney, because this is like the third or fourth time that I've heard this story from you, and I'm still like, what the fuck?
I know. Even when I tell it, I'm still like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And we've had something similar, especially recently, because we've been kind of like going out a little bit more and like interacting with society a little bit more. And the first one was, and I actually told you about this, but same thing. We went to the zoo. We went to the dinosaur exhibit, and the first time we went was just the four of us. And then I went back and it was me, the boys, and my parents and my sister. So we were walking through, we had just got there, and this woman's walking opposite of us. And all of a sudden she just stops dead in her tracks, comes up to Cyrus, and like is making the biggest to-do over Cyrus and his wheelchair. And she's like, oh my God, when people are saying you're rolling, like you can really roll out of here, and that's the coolest wheels and this and that. And I love it. Like I love him getting attention, positive attention like that, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also really gross too, because I'm like,
yeah,
if you're not stopping for the kid that's also walking by you, and you're not talking about his shoes or his shirt or anything like that, why the fuck are you stopping my kid to talk about this? And then also like, hey, his little brother is here, so you're just gonna like all eyes on Cyrus simply because he's in a wheelchair. Now let's also, I'm gonna sidetrack for a minute, because this is very common for kids that have these types of disabilities, right? A kid in a wheelchair, this and that. Now let's talk about kids who have behavioral disabilities, kids who have autism. Let's discuss about what happens when these kids are overstimulated and now they're having behavioral issues. Who's stopping them to say, oh my God, you're so cute, this and that? Like, no. There's so much judgment thrown to these kids that have these different types of disabilities. So there's that whole thing, too. That's really just gross, right? Like, it's not even across the board.
I have a friend whose son is autistic, and she's had the opposite experience where they wouldn't let her child in. Mm-hmm. There's this reverse, too, because there's this stigma with certain types of disabilities that it's like, well, that's parenting.
Disrupting. Poor parenting. Yeah. That's poor parenting.
That's disrupting. Your disability is disrupting.
Get your kid under control. Yeah.
Get out of here. You can't come in here.
Yep, yeah.
And that's some bullshit, too.
It drives me crazy, because it's like, if you're going to come up to my kid and discuss his disability with him, and not even like directly discuss his disability, but like discuss his wheelchair and this and that, I can guarantee they're not doing the same thing when they see an overstimulated child that's, needs time. They're not doing that. And so there's that. Gosh, I kind of like was walking through the park and I was really kind of pissed off over that situation, because we don't get out much. But here's my kid seeing all these other kids passing by him, and all of a sudden people are stopping for him. And maybe in his head he's loving the attention and he's like, his ego's exploding. I don't know, but there is also the chance that he's sitting there and being like, well, why me? Why just me?
Well, yeah.
And so I kind of had to just brush that off. Ironically enough, like I said, maybe just because we've been going out, but this has been happening the last month. We've had quite a few experiences like this. We brought the kids to the movies for the first time ever. And as I'm walking into the movies, the same exact thing happened, where some woman just stops dead in her tracks and starts talking about Cyrus and his wheelchair and how great the wheelchair is and how handsome. And it's like, yes, we all know this. He is very handsome.
And his wheelchair is cool as fuck.
And his wheelchair is cool as fuck. We get it. But also, there are 10 other kids passing us right now, and you're not commenting on them.
Yeah. I also feel like there's already attention on these kids.
I know.
People are already staring. People are already pointing them out, right?
Yes.
And then to make a bigger spectacle can be, I won't say always is, because like you're saying, some people may actually like the attention, but it can be problematic, because
it can.
I'm sure there are definitely people who are like, hey, yeah, check me out in my wheelchair.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the thing is probably Cyrus. That's probably Cyrus. I mean, I
That's
know.
actually true, too. But he still doesn't deserve to have to to be pointed out and
Yes.
any more than he already is. And he doesn't need to be a spectacle. Or
Right.
what if it's an off day and he doesn't want to be bothered?
And that does happen.
These are
Yeah.
all parts of it. I don't want people coming up to me all the time. I'm an introvert, mostly. I also have some social anxiety. So when I'm in public, I'm like, hey, I'm not here.
Yeah, ignore me. Please ignore me.
I don't even exist. I'm invisible, you know? Like, I would be completely fucking freaked out if there were just people coming up to me all the time and be like, your fucking shirt is so cool, or look at your shoes. I'd be like, back the fuck off, man.
Right? Seriously. Like all the time. And there are absolutely times where Cyrus will receive that type of attention and it'll just be an off day, whether he didn't sleep the night before or whatever it is. And he'll just look at me and like the pouty lip comes out and he goes, and he starts like hyperventilating. I'm like, it's okay.
Like,
he
doesn't want
he's
it.
not into it.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. I want people interacting with my kid, but interact with my kid the way that you'd interact with other kids. And if that means that you're just walking by other kids, maybe just giving them a smile, then there you go.
Exactly.
Then that's it.
Really what it is. It doesn't need to be this extra attention or specific attention. It just needs to be exactly how you would react to anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. The other story that I have, which is like one step above that, there were no acts of kindness per se. We didn't get anything for free, but it was it was very wildly uncomfortable. And my very good friend came to visit us. And this was 2 weekends ago now. So we hadn't seen her for 4 years. There was a lot to catch up on, right? So she came to visit us. And we were like, let's just all go to dinner, you know, enjoy each other's company. So we picked this like really small little Chinese restaurant and we're sitting there and then I saw next to us there was a whole gaggle of old ladies. And I was like, this is gonna be an issue.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? Like you go and you see like the old like Marthas and you're like, oh God, I have a baby and I have a kid in a wheelchair and like we're fucked.
This is going to be a fabulous dinner.
So like we just knew. And so Kyle and I are sitting across from each other and the kids are at the end of the table between us, but the kids' backs were to this gaggle of old ladies. Now, Alden being Alden just kind of kept turning around and like waving and smiling and doing his whole thing. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And then we're all having a conversation. And next thing I know, we got interrupted by one of the ladies. And she's like, excuse me, what's his problem? What does he have? Why is he in a wheelchair?
Oh, no.
And we all kind of just were like, what? Excuse me? And she's like, what does he have? Why does he use a wheelchair?
Oh,
and I was like, he has trouble walking. And she said, well, why does he have trouble walking? And I'm like, end it here. I went home and I was actually mad at myself because I advocate so fucking hard to be like, your kid's medical information is nobody else's information in this. And I froze and I panicked and I didn't know what to do. And I just went, he has cerebral palsy.
I know. Right? People have to understand that it's jolting. So you're jolting. Like stunned. Literally stunned.
I'm literally in the middle of a conversation, catching up with a friend I haven't seen in 4 years, like meeting her son and all of this, and all of a sudden it's just like, I'm sorry, what? And then I just like...
But that's it. You're like, your train of thought was on something completely different. Here you are, you're just having a conversation, enjoying your life, doing your thing, and to get that reroute of your brain, it's like you can't do it fast enough.
And I know you 100% are in the same boat as me, because it's like you could do these things of like having a conversation and meet up with friends, and there's a part of your brain that's also doing all of the other things, right? Like you're now, you know, the eyes in the back of your head watching your kids, and is somebody gonna gag, and is somebody gonna throw up, and should we start the feed now? And so it's like my brain doesn't stop. You're
already
stops.
preoccupied.
I'm already preoccupied, and like they just kind of kept trying to go on with it and ask more, and like bless my friend, because next thing I know, I hear her, she's right next to me, and very loudly she's like, and so tell me about the dinosaurs. And it was her just being like, you are not in this conversation, lady, like back up. And now at the end of it, these old ladies are, standing up and they're getting ready to leave and this and that. And one walks up to Cyrus and, touches his face. And next thing I know, she comes down and gives him a kiss.
Oh, ick.
On the face.
Holy ick.
And I was like, first off, no. Secondly, no. Please don't do this. And then, he kind of, smiled. And I know Cyrus, and it was kind of an awkward smile. And the lady that asked, why he's in a wheelchair, she was like, well, at least his eyes work. And I was like,
what does that even mean? I'm not even sure that has meaning.
I don't know what it meant. And my friend just was wide-eyed looking at me, and she's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, we deal with this a lot. And I still don't know how to respond in those situations. I want to be the person that just hey, yeah, and karate smacks an old lady away from my kids, right? I want to be that person. Instead, I'm the person that just kind of freezes. And I'm like, please lend this.
Yeah.
Let's kill me now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, Britt, because it's also incredibly unfair. Not that life is fair, but
I know,
it's
right?
incredibly unfair that there's this added stressor on families like ours. What the fuck?
Yeah.
We want to be able to just go to dinner. We want to be able to just go to the movies. We want to be able to go grocery shopping. We want to be able to do all of these things and literally not have to deal with anybody else's shit. And I mean that in every sense. I don't want to hear your pity stories. I don't want you to bless my child. I don't
fucking
want
ask
you...
questions. We don't
just leave me the fuck alone. If you're going to do anything, just say hi. Hi and move on.
Isn't it absolutely wild to you, because you're in the same situation with 2 kids, isn't it bonkers to you how you can go out with Luca and you don't get
nothing,
this?
Nothing.
Nothing. People
Absolutely
maybe give you
nothing.
a smirk.
Yeah, people will do the, oh, he's so cute, and
cute.
that's it, right?
Or yeah,
but
exactly.
why can't they do that for Lino? Why can't it just be
know.
oh my God, he's so cool. He's got an awesome wheelchair. Great, awesome. Have a good day. Bye. Why can't it be just simple? Everybody has to unload their pity.
And they want to go home and they want to feel better about themselves because
Which
of
is
it.
such bullshit.
Bullshit.
You should not feel better about yourself. I'm saying this right now. If you're listening to this and you are one of those people, I'm sorry. I'm going to fucking smack you in the face right now. You should not feel good about yourself.
Yeah, you should probably feel worse.
Yes.
Because you made us all uncomfortable.
You're tormenting us as families. I'm not kidding. I am not fucking kidding. When this shit happens, I sit on it for days.
Yeah.
Again, we can't speak on the behalf of the disabled community, and we can't 100% say how it affects our children, but we do see some of the effects, certainly. There's times Lino gives me the pout or cries when someone approaches him in public. So I know, obviously, in those particular moments, he's not liking it. He does not want it, right? The other moments, I can't 100% speak to whether or not he would tell them fuck off or not. But it's not fair what is happening to our kids, and it's not fair how that affects us as parents.
And their siblings.
And it's not fair to the siblings. Yeah. It is not fair to the siblings at all.
Nope.
And I'm so over it. Yeah. And the thing is with the sort of getting things for free sort of situation, Lino not paying to get into that event, that's a new thing for us because Lino's just pretty much come of age for a lot of things. Meaning we do a lot of activities. So this isn't the first time we've been to even an event like this. The thing is that Lino prior would always fall under the category of not needing a ticket anyway.
Yep.
Now he's of age. I buy him a ticket.
Right.
As that's starting to happen, I'm preparing myself.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think about things to say when it happens again because I foresee this happening way more often for us than I'd like it to. Because we really do a lot of things. Oh, man, I am trying to build up a catalog of responses. When this shit goes down.
It's tough because it's you advocating for him. It's also your pride to some extent, right? And it's also I've had this conversation before with you where it's if Cyrus is old enough and he wants to take advantage of that, then fucking take advantage of that.
Yes.
You're never gonna do away with ableism. Cyrus, you're gonna experience it your whole life. And guess what? If somebody wants to fucking buy you a free toy and you want them to buy you a free toy, take advantage of the system, bro. It's fine.
100%. You want it, you take it.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, you are not obligated to have to take these things. You are not obligated to have to answer questions. You're not obligated to these things just because you're disabled. If it doesn't make you feel good, then don't do it. I want him to know when he's old enough. And I'm sure that there will be situations as he gets older where somebody does say, like, oh, do you, I'll do this for you or whatever. And, like, I'll look at him and I'll be like, is that what you want? And then he'll...
If that's what you want.
And he'll respond. So I don't want to instill it in him that, like, you absolutely cannot accept this. But I also, like, don't want to instill that he has to.
Yes. And I want to educate people on the fact that this doesn't do any good. And what I mean by that is people really have to stop and start thinking about, why are you doing these things? Why are you paying for a meal? Why are you buying this kid his toy? Why are you not charging him a ticket? What does that actually accomplish?
I think it just makes them feel good. It's like an ego stroke,
yeah.
right? It's like, oh, I did something good today.
But it's like, here's an entire community, right? The entire disabled community is advocating for themselves to have equal rights and to be recognized and represented and to have inclusion, accessibility, all of these things, right? And what are you contributing to that movement with acts like that? Because all I see is you're perpetuating the opposite.
Right.
You're saying, well, oh, you're disabled.
You can't pay for your own meal.
Yeah, or I have to pity you. You're disabled. Let me cover that. Let me not charge you.
Yeah.
What is that actually accomplishing? What they leave in the wake is worse. It really is. What they leave in the wake is worse because you're affecting the disabled person, their caregivers, their families. I mean, it's way more, and people have to stop with this BS about, I'm doing a kind act. That's not a kind act per se. Especially when you're doing it publicly, you're doing it in front of other people, you're making a fuss about it, it's becoming a whole spectacle. You want to know what a kind act is for a family that may be struggling or a family that has a disabled child and is having financial issues? Maybe just a fucking pat on the back.
I know, right?
Maybe just, you know what, you're doing a damn good job.
And that's the thing, is that I feel so much better about myself as a mom when I'm out in public and another mom or another family or whoever just kind of passes by me and gives me a little smile. And not even like in relation to having a disabled kid. Like, I see you, mama. Like, you have 2 kids. You're doing it. Like, good job. That makes me feel so much better personally. And I feel so much more empowered as a mom. Just going out and being treated like every other fucking mom than somebody either going up to Cyrus and overcompensating for the pity they feel for Cyrus, or coming up to me and being like, I don't know how you do it, bless you, this. Like, that doesn't make me fucking feel good. Like, I don't like that. Like, listen, I'm just like every other mom, okay? I know it might look different for other people, but I'm just like every other mom, and like sometimes I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna go out, we're gonna go to the park, we're gonna go to the zoo, and it's like, and that's it. Like, we just want to be treated like anyone else in society. I would like to be treated how I'm treated when I just go out with Alden, and that's it.
100%. I always think back to this experience I had very early on in Lino's journey. We went to a music festival nearby. It was actually meant to be a mom and dad 2-day event alone. But we had an NG tube mishap, and we had to go pick up Lino early. This is when Lino had an NG tube, and we picked up Lino early, and the music festival had no restriction in terms of age. Anybody could attend. So we were like, you know what? Look, we're not gonna miss the rest of this festival. We're just gonna go get Lino and we're gonna go. Which was a really hard decision to make. I'm not gonna. I think he was like 7 months old. Things were chaos back then.
Yeah.
We were just like, we're just gonna fucking do this shit. And I don't know why it was like this, because I wish I knew, but the people at this festival, maybe they were drunk. I don't fucking know. But they were just they were great.
Yeah.
Like, we went to this festival, and at the time we were using a feeding pump. And so we had like a lot of medical equipment, and we're like going through security, and security was great, but nobody was like making a fuss or like acting pitiful. And then like we got through And the first person that kind of interacted with us, that was another attendee. It happened to be like a NICU dad. And he was like looking at us and he smiled and he was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm so glad you brought him.
Oh,
I remember this guy to this day because I was like, oh my God, thanks. Like, awesome. Because I was like panicking about this whole experience.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, my son was in the NICU. And that was like it. And then he just like went on his way. And that's the kind of interaction that sticks with you. It felt so good. Like there were other families that had their babies there. And we were just like, we just felt like a family with a baby. Because guess what?
Love that?
We were a family with a baby. That's all we are. And sometimes I wish people would just fucking remember that. Like sometimes, honestly, just saying something like, oh, that's awesome. Look at you guys. Great. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Like you're doing a fucking awesome job. That's all we need.
Yeah. That's it. And then walk away. Walk away.
And walk away. You know, I don't want to divulge his medical history. I don't want to hear your bullshit. You know, like that day will live with me forever because it was so
simple.
It was so freeing.
Yeah.
It just felt like we were just a family just doing our thing. And that's all we are, is a family doing our thing. So please just back off.
I always say, like, children are amazing examples of how to treat other children or other people with disabilities, right? Because now here's the thing. Kids are curious. So I give the pass when a kid asks a question because that's okay. Like, they're children, right?
They're supposed to. Yeah.
They're supposed to. I don't think, like, listen, if you're an adult, you do not need to ask why somebody is in a wheelchair or why somebody uses a mobility device or communication device or anything like that. You don't need to ask questions if you're an adult, right? But kids will give the pass to. And so very often when we interact with other kids, they usually ask a question first, even if it's like, why does he use a wheelchair? Or they'll be like, oh, what's this on his wheels? Because he has, like, these dogs on his wheels, right? Which is fine. After that, that's it. They move on, and it's just, like, just dealing with another kid. And then it's really the parents that kind of instill that, like, oh, good job, Timmy. Good job helping the kid with the wheelchair. You know, it's like really the parents that instill that. But the kids, you know, they don't really have that mindset until that does get instilled with them. So I always say, like, just watch the kids. Watch how kids interact with our disabled kids, and that's how adults should interact with them, I feel like. They don't overcompensate. Kids are a great way of showing adults how to do it and how to do it right, and at the same time, you know, like, really hate when adults kind of shush kids.
Yeah.
Don't shush your kid if they want to approach another kid that's disabled, or an adult. It's not something to be ashamed of, and if your little kid is asking questions like, why is this person in a wheelchair? Or, you know, like Cyrus has gotten the, like, why don't his legs work? like, you know, and it's a kid. Like, it's a kid. So it's like, you know,
But I could just see the parent being like, no. Shh. You don't say that. That's where the education needs to happen with adults.
Yeah.
It just has to. It's just the truth, because this is a trickle-down effect. And if a kid sees their parent paying a meal or doing this, like, you're just carrying this shit on. And the education really needs to start with parents, because you're right. Kids are not inherently ableist or anything, you know, that's taught and that's nurtured into them. And that's how their upbringing comes into play. It's interesting because we talked about this earlier, how this has bled into social media too. Inspiration porn, acts of kindness. So, and this is across the board. It's not just with disability. You know, you see like, oh, I'm going to give $500 to this homeless person, or, you know,
record
and
it and put it on social media.
Exactly. And it's, oh my God, is it toxic?
Yeah.
It's so toxic. I really need people to stop and think about when they're watching these videos, because I'm sure there's listeners out there who watch these videos. I mean, I find them on my social feeds. So I can't imagine that you're not either. What are you gaining from watching it, number one? And what are these people gaining from these acts and these recordings? Like, what is it actually doing for society? You know, you really got to think about it, because it's getting out of hand.
It is. And there's huge accounts that do it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, huge accounts that constantly do that. And I know I told you this story once, Courtney, but it just kind of showed up as, like, a suggestion. And I didn't even read the context at first. It was just, I think it was a husband and a wife having dinner, right? And the wife was in a wheelchair. And they were sitting at the table having dinner. And it was actually a very nice photograph. And I was like, oh, this is a nice picture. And then I read the context and I was like, oh, no. And the person who took the picture, it was their account. And it was just like a random person. And she went on and on about how she was having dinner and, you know, this couple came next to her and, you know, the wife was in the wheelchair and this and that, and she paid for their fucking meal. And, you know, I kind of like, I ran to Wes and I was like, Wes, what is this shit? And like him and I both went into the comment sections and we're like, first off, you're taking pictures of these people without their knowledge. That's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like, secondly, if they couldn't afford their meal, they wouldn't be there.
Exactly.
Like, they're going out, probably on a date. I don't know. Who knows what they were doing, but they're going out having dinner together. They obviously know they can afford this. They obviously prepared for it. And you think that they can't? Like, what?
Yeah.
And then you take a picture of it, and then you post about it online.
And what has that done for her disabled community? Meaning, like, how does that help her?
Exactly.
Does that help her fight insurance for her wheelchair next time they say no? Does that help her, I don't know, get home modifications? Does that help her legally marry and not lose her benefits? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
You want to go out in public, you want to go out in society, you want to, you know, see somebody in a wheelchair that's disabled and you want to advocate for them. You know what you do? You say, was it okay getting into this building?
Yeah.
Like, what was
there
accessibility like?
Was there a step?
Did you have to go through the back where they take the garbage out?
Yes.
Because let me speak to the manager. Like, that's how you feel good about yourself. Like, it can't just solely be on the disabled community and their caregivers, because that's really what it is. These other people are fucking sitting there doing acts of kindness, paying for shit, giving free shit out, this and that, and they're completely ignoring the systemic issues that are at hand right now, which is lack of accessibility. You know, I mean, Courtney, you said it yourself. The dinosaur thing that you went to, like, not overly accessible. I mean, the same thing with Cyrus. Thankfully, the zoo that is local to us, they just kind of went through and, like, all the exhibits. I hated taking Cyrus to the zoo because the glass that you look through, it was always too high for him. So he could never see the exhibits. And I was like, I don't want to take him to this. And then we went to the dino thing just to do the dino thing. And they went through and they redid everything so the glass is a lot lower.
Oh, that's good.
So he can see now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is great. But that's what you fight for.
That's
write
the change,
letters.
yeah. That's the stuff that this community needs.
Yeah, like write letters to places, pay attention to whether there's adult changing tables, and if there's not, write a fucking letter to management. You want to do well by the disabled community, you want to go home feeling better about yourself. That's what you do. Why are we still not allowing wheelchairs on planes?
Yeah. Don't get me started on that. If you want me to never shut up
for Courtney.
Yes, we fly a lot, and we're not gonna touch that topic today. But seriously, you know, disabled people and their families and their caregivers wouldn't have financial issues if we were changing these societal issues.
Yeah.
I hate to fucking say it, but I wouldn't be struggling financially if I didn't have to pay outrageous copays, or I didn't have to pay out of pocket for therapies that should be fucking covered. I mean, this is the type of shit that if you really want to help us and you really want to do an act of kindness, get off your ass and start fucking fighting for this shit too. Yeah. Because you paying for my dinner, I hate to fucking tell you,
it doesn't change our world.
It ain't doing shit. You know, you're I don't know, $60 that you just fucking saved me is not saving me.
Yeah, exactly.
At all. Yeah. At all.
It's a drop in a bucket compared to everything else.
And I also want to say, it's not even just about the money. Like, it's not even that it's $60, or even if you gave me $10,000. I shouldn't need $10,000 to care for my child is the problem. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Outside of the normal care for my child. I shouldn't need all this extra money because the system is so broken. Yeah. That's the bigger issue. And people really need to think about that. Holy shit, you need to remember that so many families struggle and so many disabled people struggle financially, because it's not just families that struggle. There are disabled adults out there that are just struggling to get by because they don't have a source of income because their benefits are threatened, or they have a source of income, but it still doesn't support their needs because insurance and copays and all this shit is just astronomical. Or if their wheelchair breaks and they have to pay for the cost of their wheelchair.
And then wait.
Yes. Like these are the issues financially that the disabled community needs help with.
Yeah.
They need the support to fight for that. They don't need you to pay for their damn dinner. And I mean, also, if you want to pay for their dinner and they want to take it, go for it.
And they want to take it. Yes, exactly. But that's.
But I'm just saying, it's actually not doing anything.
No, and I think, like, ask, right? Like, instead of just doing these fucking acts of kindness, and own up to it. Be like, it would make me feel really good if I paid for your dinner. Do you mind if I do that? That's it. Like, own up to you're doing it for yourself, because it makes you feel good, and then fucking ask the person. Don't just go through and say, oh, I only scanned 2 tickets because of that. Like, don't fucking do that. Don't, like, buy somebody's dinner without asking them and then take a picture and post it on social media. Like, don't do that. Just ask the person, first off, if you're gonna do that. Also, you really don't have to. Like,
you have no right. You have no right. And especially, like, in our situation that day with the tickets, like, you have no right.
Yeah.
You have no right to tell me that my ticket is not valid, that my son is not valid.
Yep.
You have no right.
Imagine how different your experience would be. 1, if that just didn't happen at all. But 2, if instead of that, they said something like, are there any accommodations we can make for you guys?
Yes.
That's it. Imagine how fucking different that would have been. And then you could have sat there and been like, hey, do you have an adult changing table? And if they said no, be like, can you talk to management about that? Like, can we, like, petition for that? Yeah. Seriously, if that question, because this was an employee, if instead of her just saying, get a refund for this ticket, if she just said, are there any accommodations we can make for you guys to make your experience better? That's it. That's it. It would have been so much better.
And it's so simple.
It's so simple.
That suggestion is just the most basic.
Yes.
It's very, very simple. I think that narrative needs to shift.
Yeah.
I do blame social media a lot for this.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Because like those videos we were just talking about, that's part of the problem. Is people see it and they're like, oh, I'm going to do that too next time.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing as like the, non-disabled kids take the disabled girl to prom type of thing. Like, it's the same thing.
I can't stand that.
I know,
I
right?
cannot stand that.
Yeah. But I think that this kind of all just, like, boils on down to, we have discussed so much that it's like, I think that this is why we freeze. Because there's so much to it. There's no real way to say to somebody, this doesn't help.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
you don't even get that far in your thought process when it's happening. Like, you're so stunned. Yeah. You don't even know how to be like, you're not helping.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Courtney and I both, like, really, really want to work on appropriate responses to the kindness things, because we don't want our kids to see that. And I don't want Cyrus to see that. I really don't want Alden to see that. I really don't want him to sit back and be, like, resentful of his brother, that his brother gets all this attention and he's just in the shadows. I don't want that. It's just, I also want to lead, like, I really want Alden to be the sibling that's like, what the fuck are you looking at?
I'm pretty sure he's going to be. I'm pretty sure that's not going to be problematic at all.
That's the thing. It's like, I'm great at, like, I am a very confrontational person when I have to be. I'm great at doing it when I have to be. And it's just, I haven't figured it out when people are nice to us, because they're nice to us for themselves. And it's, I guess to some extent too, it makes me feel a little bit bad sometimes to be like, well, I'm gonna shit on their parade and ruin their day. And it's like, we already deal with that as mothers, right? And it's like, we're the ones going home, we're the ones dealing with it and stuff like that. And it's like, to reciprocate that and come at it and be confrontational, and then that person goes home and then they have a bad day. And are we all just gonna have a really bad day? Like, it's tough.
You're right, because it really does boil down to, am I gonna ream somebody now?
Yeah.
and reverse it and just make you feel fucking shitty?
Yeah.
It really puts families in a bind, disabled people too, when it happens to them. I think it just put people in general in a bind, and that's why I think it needs to happen on a massive cultural level.
Yeah.
I think this is a good start. Obviously, it's not like our podcast is being listened to by millions, but I think, this is where we start those conversations. We start talking about it. We start getting that info out there. Other families start talking about it more, and hopefully we can start like a wave of change, because I remember when I just posted about what happened at the Dino event, so many moms contacted me.
Yeah.
They would just be like, I freeze too. I don't know what to say. Oh my God, this happened to me the other day. Or, oh, this happens to us all the time. This is not a one-off. We are not unique.
No, it's constant.
This is constant, and it has repercussions, and God, it needs to stop. I wish I could blast this podcast everywhere. So
I know.
Just be like, everybody just sit down and take a listen, because
take a seat.
It just needs to stop.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make it stop, but hopefully this is a good start.
This is a start. We're starting here. And maybe just like for future reference, Courtney, maybe whenever we're experiencing something like this, we can just be like, no, thank you. And then that's it. And then just like walk away. No, thank you. And then we don't need to continue the conversation. Just be like, no, thanks. And then that's, no thanks. And then I'll turn my back.
That's great. Bye. Yeah. I do need to come up with some sort of like, even if it's just as simple as that, like a default response.
Yeah.
Because I either say nothing, or I do what I was saying earlier, where I'm like, thank you. I don't know why I'm thanking them. I don't even know why I'm thanking them. Or like I'm being like super kind back, when inside I'm like boiling and I don't know what the fuck to do with myself.
That's a trauma response. I will say that fawning is a trauma response. So like that kind of makes sense, right? Like
there's a valid point there.
It is. Yeah, because I will sometimes do that too, and I'm like, "Oh, you're so great." Ha, ha, ha. And then like I have to go home and be like, that was my trauma response in that moment, because fawning it is a trauma response, unfortunately.
So bad.
And then we're traumatized by our own response. So,
yes.
The cycle continues. We traumatize ourselves in these moments.
It's so messed up.
I think if you're out there listening to this and you have stories similar to ours, please reach out and tell us, because we would love to hear everyone else's stories of something similar. And if you have some good default responses to them, also reach out to us, because we would love to hear that.
No,
We'd love to have some in our back pocket.
And maybe if we get enough responses, maybe we could share them with the audience. Like I think it's really great if we start a conversation where we talk it out. I'm sure there's got to be other parents out there that are like, oh, hey, I've figured out a good loophole for this. Like,
please
teach us.
We appreciate everyone listening today. We hope that you've all enjoyed our episode. Maybe you have stories too. We're hoping to hear them. So thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for listening to the Bitching and Bolusing Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe for future episodes. Previous episodes can be heard on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. If you like what we said, please be sure to give us a share. You can follow us on Instagram at Bitching and Bolusing. And you can visit us at www.bitchingandbolusing.com.